Hey, Mike, can you nod if you can hear me okay? Okay, good. Everybody will be muted as you are. I can see you heard me. Thank you. That's all I needed to know. I'm going to go back to mute. Mike, can you hear us okay? Wave at me. Mike, can you wave at me if you can hear me? All right. We're rolling. Okay, I think we're about ready to get started here. Let me turn this slowly and hopefully it's still working. Well, just a second for me. Yep, that's still working. Let me go back to that. All right. Ready?
Okay. Can everyone hear okay? Can everyone hear me okay? All right. How about that? Is that loud enough?
No.
No, really? Oh my gosh. Okay, how about that? Is that loud enough? Okay. Okay.
Loud as it goes.
All right, I will try to really shout here. All right, thank you all very much for coming out this evening to our I think this is our 7th or 8th workshop so far. Tonight we're going to be talking about the collection system, and just to get the ball rolling here. Let's see. All right, so just to go over the agenda, because for everyone's benefit, we're still operating under Brown Act. This is considered a special meeting. We'll do some quick introductions of some of the folks that are here. We've got plenty of people on hand who can answer some of your more challenging or questions that you have a lot of that you're looking for more detail or specificity. We have the Wallace group, of course, who's going to present on the 30% design. After the Wallace group finishes their presentation, we will open it up for public comment. And on your chair is a little index card and some pens scattered around. Go ahead and jot down your question. We'll collect them all. We'll answer the general questions for the benefit of everybody. And questions that require possibly a longer or more detailed answer, we'll direct you to the table where we've got the individuals who can best answer that question at length for you. And then we'll conclude after that. So that's generally the format for this evening. All right, so just going to introduce a handful of people here. We just walked in. We have Joan Hartman from County Board of Supervisors. We have Jason Johnson, and you guys don't have to stand or anything, but Jason Johnson from EHS, along with, is Chris here yet? Or no? Okay, thank you. Chris Snedden, also from EHS. Sorry, Public Works. Thank you, Tom. We also have Ethan Bertrand from Greg Hart's office, and Harvey Packard and Cecile, I'm going to mispronounce your Blancart, thank you, from Central Regional Water Quality Board. And Randy Murphy and Jose Acosta from City of Solvang. So any questions that you have about the pipeline to Solvang, they'll be on hand to help with that. We have Peter Garcia from ID1. So if you have any questions related to that, he'll be on hand. And then, of course, we have Carrie Wagner and Eric Rutherford from Wallace Group who can answer questions about the project itself. Okay, so this is you now next. Okay, now here, guys, going to take over.
Julie's like, guys, I'm out. I'm joking. All right, so I realize that many of you have seen some version of what's really the next 3 or 4 slides. But as a setup for what Carrie's going to present from the Wallace Group in just a few minutes, I want to go through this real quick. So sorry if it's a repeat for most of you, but for some of you, it'll be a good reminder as well, I think. So first of all, what's a wastewater system? You collect, you treat, and you dispose. It doesn't matter if it's your septic tank at home or LA's biggest system in California, probably, right? You have to collect sewer, wastewater, do something to treat it, and then you get rid of the liquid that's left over afterward. Tonight's workshop is only focused on the first part. We've already talked about treatment and disposal in previous workshops. Interestingly, almost a year ago today. It was late May of 2025. We talked about those two. So your questions or comments should be focused primarily in this area. But if you do have those other questions, we can certainly get them answered as part of the discussion tables and so on. All right, so you're going to hear some acronyms tonight. You're going to hear some things that you may or may not know about. Again, most of you have seen this slide or some version of it. You're going to hear about gravity-fed systems, and you're going to hear about something called STEP. I've got a slide in just a second on what STEP looks like. I like to use pictures. Carrie's going to probably cover these again. It's pretty simple, right? You've got a house or a business. Water and wastewater flows down that pipe to the property line. Everything on this side of the property line is typically owned by the property owner, right? Once you get to the property line, everything is owned by the district, or in this case, part of it will be owned by Solvang, right? If we go to the Solvang treatment plant. So property owner owned, district owned. And that's really important to some of what Carrie's going to talk about later. You notice there's no septic tank in this picture, right? It's just a pipe, things flow downhill. Here's a very similar picture with a step tank introduced, right? So got a little power box up the side, goes down, it runs the pump that's inside that unit. Those units function similarly to a septic tank. Wastewater goes in, solids are separated on site, just like in your septic tank today. Eventually they will have to be pumped. It's just the liquid that would go into your, whatever you have on your site, your leach field, will go off to Solvang to be treated, okay? Importantly, you can see I've got the lines that say pressurized pipes. All of the things that the district would own in the public right-of-way, that would all be under pressure, as well as the pipe coming kind of that little bit here on your property right here. So doesn't matter though whether we use septic like we have today or a step tank. We're assuming, or he's assumed with their design, that all the septic tanks we have today would have to be replaced. In the case of gravity fed, you would abandon them in place or remove them or what have you. So the big difference is tank on site, pressurized for step system, no tank on site, gravity fed or a gravity fed system. All right, so almost done here. So this, many of you have seen this picture as well. So that's the district up in the top, right? We're going to collect from all the businesses and property owners up there. We've got a Los Olivos Community Services District pipe that runs down Alamo Pintado to right near Sunny Field. And at that point, we'll hand the wastewater off to the City of Solvang because they have existing pipes there already, okay? So then it goes through City of Solvang pipes down to the treatment plant, which for those who don't know, it's just the other side of the river. If you go across the bridge toward the Alice Canal, just across the river. So that's the collect, convey, and treat and dispose. So here we are talking about what we're doing tonight. So Wallace Group scope, this is where you should focus your questions and your comments, is the collection in the community and that conveyance down Alamo Pintado, okay? None of that other stuff really tonight. Now, I know a lot of you have other questions, comments. That'll be best held for next week's regular meeting if you want to talk about things that aren't related to what the Wallace Group has been working on. They are focused on collecting and conveying. That's what tonight's all about. All right, with that, I'm going to introduce Carrie Wagner, who's going to fire up her presentation. Here you go, Carrie. And I just realized I probably didn't share my screen. Hold on. Just enter.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Carrie Wagner. As Guy mentioned, I am with Wallace Group. I am a principal with the company and the COO. I've been your project manager on this project from the start. Eric Rutherford here is a senior mechanical engineer with our company, and has been working on much of the conveyance system as well as a lot of the cost estimating for the project. So he'll be available also to help answer any questions that you may have. Today's focus is on our 30% design and design report that we prepared. This background on this design report is this: we took the information that has already been prepared by multiple consultants prior to us for the gravity system and the step system, as well as the design considerations that they had evaluated. We did a peer review of their documents, made recommendations for changes, and then one of the key factors that I'll go into more detail about is that we put both projects side by side in our cost estimating and made the same assumptions on how the cost estimates were developed, as well as developed a 30-year life cycle, which had not previously been done. And that is a key factor in helping to make allowing the community and the board to make an educated decision on what really important project needs to move forward for this community. See, hold enter key.
Go right.
Lower.
Wait.
Nope.
Okay.
Sorry, technical difficulties. There we go. All right. So tonight's presentation, we are going to be summarizing the overall project at this 30% level, as I've already mentioned. We're going to talk about some of the design options, these two alternatives, the gravity system as well as the step system. This is going to be the information. It's very high level. I'm not going to get into the weeds of the details of either one of the designs. If you have very specific questions on that, I'm happy to answer those at a later time. We're going to focus on the constructability, the long-term operability, the system reliability, the cost, and the long-term operational sustainability for the collection system. This is really going to help support a transparent, educated decision for the community and for the board. We're also going to highlight some of the key factors that are related to the risks and the mitigation measures that we need to still take past the 30% to help refine our cost estimate. Again, this cost estimate is based on a 30% design level. There's a lot of information that we don't know yet, and that's going to come after we make that 30%. And so we've also done a sensitivity analysis that I'll go into and talk about that's going to help define on where some of the risks that we are looking at are going to include. So just a little bit of background. I know you guys all live here and all are fully aware of this, but we based our report on a resident population of approximately 1,000 people, all living on septic systems. In addition to that, you have a tourist population that hits during the summer and the weekends and the holidays of over 4,000 to 5,000 persons. You have businesses in this community that have portable tanks that are portable potties to come in and support the needs of this tourism. And that is essential, and it's affecting your groundwater. You've had shallow groundwater, and it's affecting the community's health long term. So the septic systems coupled with the shallow groundwater causes environmental issues, and you've now led to a special problem area defined by the Regional Water Quality Control Board, and something needs to be done about that. The septic systems are struggling with those peak tourist demands, and there is a need for a centralized community collection system. So just a brief overview on the wastewater collection systems that we are looking at. Not going to go into detail because Guy already went over these, but again, we are looking at a gravity sewer collection system, which means that all the wastewater is going to start at the upper end of the community. It's going to flow by gravity to the southern end of the community, and then we are going to convey that to the City of Solvang. The second alternative is a completely pressurized collection system known as a step system, septic tank effluent pump. That means we put a pump in a tank on each property, and then we will pump it into a pressurized collection system that then conveys it to the City of Solvang. Two very different systems. The step system is very similar in terms of concept as your water distribution system. It is under pressure. That is what we're looking at. And again, we're looking at a conveyance system, both gravity and pressure system being conveyed from Los Olivos all the way down to the city of Solvang. And we've got some alternatives that we're looking at for that. The gravity system, talking about a little bit more detail here. On the private property side, from your home, we would take your sewer lateral that normally goes to your septic tank currently. We would cut it off before it goes to the septic tank. We will cut it off and then divert it to the front of your property. The cost that we identify in the report is an average cost. Now, some of you property owners have septic tanks that are located in the front of your property. Some of them on the side of the property. Some of your septic tanks are in the back of the property. We do not have a clear understanding of where your septic tanks are located at this time. The district sent out a survey and we received only about 25% return commentary on where your septic tanks are located. So we've tried to make an educated guess on the most critical septic tanks in the design process, but that's still something that's going to need to get refined as we move through this design process. We will take a sewer gravity lateral that'll go from your property out to the street. Once it crosses the property line, everything, as Guy mentioned, from the property line onto the private property is property owner maintained and operated. From the property line, that becomes district owned and operated. It goes into a central collection main, which is going to be a minimum size of 8 inches. Your sewer lateral will probably be 4 inches. Unless you're a commercial business, the commercial business may be 6 or 8. That will have to get sized. From there, that collection main will then collect all the gathering streets and it will be conveyed down to the south end of the community. We have an east side collection system and a west side collection system. It'll go to a lift station and that lift station will then pump down to the city of Solvang. That is the gravity collection system. So the challenges with the gravity collection system is that because it is gravity, we are basing this on slope, and there are minimum slope requirements within on your property as well as in the street. And so this ends up tending to be deeper construction. So we're going to get into, depending also on where house sewer laterals come out, we have to design the sewer main to ensure that your sewer lateral has enough fall across your property to get to the sewer main. And then from the sewer main, then we design it to go down the road. We're fortunate in the fact that you have a gentle slope from north to south in your community. And that's helping in the design process to actually keep some of the sewer mains on the shallower side. But still, compared to a step system, the gravity sewers collection system is steeper. The sewer mains are also larger on the gravity collection system than as compared to the step system. So when you compare construction costs of a gravity collection system to a sewer collection system, it is more expensive. The maintenance of the sewer laterals is on the private property owner. The district owns and operates the collection system itself. So there'll be annual cleanings of the collection system. There'll be inspections. There's other regulatory requirements that go along with operating and maintaining a sewer collection system. Gravity sewer collection systems also have a tendency to have higher vulnerability to inflow and infiltration. You guys have higher groundwater, which means that water can make its way into the sewer collection system. Now, in our professional opinion, right now, in a brand new engineered design system, your I&I is going to be very low. That's the benefits of having a new collection system. But over time, that will change as system infrastructure ages, pipes shift and move. You're going to end up getting some I&I over time. And a gravity system is going to have more I&I over time than a step system.
Would you define I&I?
Inflow and infiltration. So it's the water, groundwater. It's either high groundwater or storm water coming into the collection system. Thank you. A step system, again, as Guy mentioned in his analysis or previous slides, is that the step system uses an underground tank. And as he mentioned, we at this time have assumed that all septic tanks have to be replaced with a contained tank with a pump inside of it that would take the liquid portion of your wastewater and pump it into a conveyance system, a pressurized collection system. Your solids that are within the tank of on your site would have to be pumped every few years. So that is a cost that's going to be borne to the property owner. The tank itself and the pump will be connected to your house electrical, and you will have those energy costs in that centralized pump station. The collection system, again, once it gets past the property line, the district owns and operates and maintains the collection system. It's under pressure. It doesn't have some of the same maintenance that a gravity system, because it's only going to be liquids. We would only be sending liquids to the City of Solvang. We wouldn't be sending any of the solids to the City of Solvang. As I mentioned, the depth of the sewer system for a step system, because it's under pressure, just like a water system, the depth of the sewer collection system does not have to be deep. We can traverse the hills and follow the topography of the community and stay 4 to 5 feet below the surface. We still have to be around at least 5 feet, because your water system, to our knowledge at this point, is around 3 feet. And we have to be below the water system per regulatory requirements, separation requirements from a water system to protect the health of the safety of the water. So we still have to be fairly, what I would still classify as deep. We're going to be at 5 feet. So there's still going to be a lot of the same utility conflicts that we're going to see with the gravity system. But in general, when you're comparing 5 feet to potentially 10 and 15 feet as compared to the gravity system, it is considered shallower. We're not going to have as many groundwater impacts. You have a lot of shallow groundwater, especially down at the south end of the town. And so those costs for dewatering during construction will be less expensive than the gravity system. Now, the maintenance and operations on a step system are more challenging on the property owners, because you are now having to maintain a pump system on your property. There are other items that you need to consider is the energy costs, as well as what happens if the power goes out. How much time do you have in your septic system, your step system, before that is overflowing and you have issues? Same thing goes with the entire community. This is operating based on power being pumped, being pressurized. So these are concerns that we would have in a step system. While the cost to the district, and I'm going to go through the costs here very shortly, and you'll see if you have already read the report, the cost of the step system as compared to the gravity system for the district is substantially less expensive. But a lot of the cost gets shifted to the property owners instead of the district. And so I'll point that out when we go to the cost estimates here in just a second. So the district's going to need to maintain, one of the other items that we do want to consider is that the district may need to maintain an easement on every single property for these step systems. The district's going to have a responsibility to ensure that the step system on the private property is operating and maintaining properly. And the only way they can do that is to have access to that tank and that pump, which means they're going to have to maintain or get an easement on the property. Construction costs. The construction cost for the gravity collection system has estimated at $51.2 million. Most of this is primarily due to those deep trenches as well as dewatering. For the step system, the cost shifts to 38.6, which is about 25% less than the gravity system. And this is, again, primarily due to the shallow trenches, lower dewatering costs, smaller pressure mains. This cost does not include the costs for the private property or for the easements. We did a sensitivity analysis because, as I mentioned, there's still risks and unknowns that we have not estimated. And construction costs, as you probably are very much aware, they are in flux all the time. And so we've estimated some of the larger cost estimates. We have some very recent construction costs for sewers and as well as HDPE pipe for pressurized systems. So we've got some really good construction numbers right now, but there's always risk to it. And those costs can fluctuate 30 plus or minus 30%. So I don't want you to get hyper vigilant on the $51.2 million, is that there is going to be fluctuation in our plus or minus 30%, especially at this level. So our project really on the gravity collection system, we're estimating between $40 and $60 million. On the step system is anywhere from $31 to $46 million. As I mentioned at the opening, is that Wallace Group did a 30-year life cycle. And this is something that the district, the community has not seen yet from any of the previous construction cost estimates from the previous consultants. And really the reason for this was so that you as a community member can see what your cost is going to be over the entire lifespan of the usable life for the project, where most of the infrastructure will then we're going to project out what is going to need to be replaced over the years. Mechanical facilities need to be replaced sooner than the gravity system. How much does it take to operate and maintain it? A gravity system has to be maintained clean, CCTV. Mechanical facilities, pumps, tanks have to be pumped. Mechanical pumps have to be replaced. So we looked at a 30-year life cycle analysis and included all of these costs into that analysis. And when you start to add up all the costs and bring it back to net present value, the cost of the gravity system is $52.9 million, while the step system is at $39.6 million. So the delta between the two shifts, it becomes a little less. The step system incurs higher private property, and this is where I'm going to go into the next slide and actually really show you how the costs shift from the from the district over to the private property, depending on the gravity system to the step system. I also do want to emphasize that the costs that we're talking about tonight are not all the costs of this project. There are additional costs that are going to get incurred by the community, and that's going to be the cost share with the City of Solvang for upgrades to their system, bonding costs, insurance costs, the finance costs that are going to require to fund this project, as well as other environmental impacts and some soft design costs, what we call soft costs, the environmental and impacts and so forth. So those need to get those are going to get quantified better in the engineer's report that is going to get done for the rate study. That's where it's going to become more of the all-in cost for the project. This is just strictly focusing on the construction cost of the project itself. So here's a table that really defines the project, and I can step through just because I can't see the numbers on this screen. I'm going to look back here. So as I mentioned before, column A or row A talks about the capital costs. The $51.2 million for the gravity system, the 38.6 for the step system. The capital cost on a per EDU. So what do I mean by a per EDU basis? That means we took up the number of residential single-family homes within the community, and we also took the number of commercial properties and equated their volume of wastewater to a residential community member or residential house. And we took and calculated the number of equivalent dwelling units. And there's 761 equivalent dwelling units within the community. That's the equal share the equal share amongst all the property owners is 761. So if you take the 51.2 and divide by 67 or 761, the capital cost becomes $67,300 per EDU. So if you are a single family resident, your capital cost share is going to be $67,300 of that total $52 million. If you are a commercial property, commercial properties are in line of more 6 EDUs. 6 EDUs times the 67,000, and that is going to become your capital cost for commercial property. We estimated the private residential capital cost. This is your construction cost to abandon your septic tank, pump your septic tank, abandon it, construct your sewer lateral on your property. For the gravity system, it's going to cost $16,400. Again, this is an average cost. Some of your properties, if you have a septic tank at the front of your property, it's probably going to be less. If your septic tank is under only grass, it's going to be less. If it is under concrete, it's going to be more expensive. If you have to go under a retaining wall, it's going to be more expensive. If it's located in the back, it could be more expensive. This is an average cost per resident. But this is the cost that you're going to bear yourself to construct your sewer lateral. The step system, we've estimated at $39,200. This is where the shift of the construction costs go from the district to the property owner to construct that step system. Commercial costs is for the sewer lateral. Step 1 is going to be, again, 16.4, same issues. But for the gravity system, because they're going to need larger tank, larger sewer lateral, bigger pump, the cost that we've estimated for a commercial property to construct a step system on their property is $85,000. When we look at this from a 30-year life cycle analysis, the cost of the gravity system, it's really, we're front loaded. It's all in the capital cost. There's not a lot of operations and maintenance costs over a 30-year period for the district. Again, also on the pressurized septic, the step system for the district, the 30-year life cycle cost is not overly costly. But when we start to look at this from a property owner perspective, if you look at row G, the private residential, again, your life cycle cost for your sewer lateral in the gravity system is $18,600. Your life cycle for the property owner for the step system is $45,400.
Over 30 years?
Over 30 years. That's the total cost over 30 years. The line I want to focus on is line I, the estimated total residential cost per EDU. For the gravity system is $88,200, and for a step system is $97,500. Of which half of that, meaning the $39,000, is covered by the property owner not being able to be funded by the district. It is a loan or cash out of pocket that you're going to have to pay for upfront in order to fund the improvements on your community. So just talking about a little bit about the risks and some of the construction challenges. Again, shallow groundwater is a big risk within this project. Depending on when we start construction, when we do the phasing of construction, if we're coming off of a very wet year, your groundwater table is higher, that's going to increase cost on the project. We might have some permitting challenges. We don't know, we have not worked with the regional board yet to determine what kind of treatment we might have to do to any groundwater that we encounter while during construction. And so we have to identify what those permit challenges will be. There's going to be utility conflicts. One of the biggest challenges is ID1's water system within the Los Olivos community is asbestos cement. Asbestos cement, AC pipe, is very brittle. All of your sewer mains, regardless of a step system or the gravity system, are going to be constructed underneath the water system, which means every time we cross the water system, we are going to have to protect that AC pipe. AC pipe is very challenging to protect. And so it is brittle, and we are expecting breaks within the water system during construction. This is going to add cost to the project. When we are running parallel to the water system, we are 10 feet off of the water system. So there's not issues when we're running parallel to the water system. It is only when we are crossing perpendicularly. Community impact. This project is going to disrupt the entire community. There's going to be traffic impacts. There's going to be noise, access limitations to your properties when the contractor. So phasing of this project is going to be very critical. These don't necessarily drive construction costs, but it is an impact to you that you guys will need to be prepared for. Step systems face homeowners acceptance. These are proven technologies. They are used, but they are not widely used, and they're not widely used here in California. But it is a system that can be implemented. It requires higher education, higher challenges, levels of communication with property owners to understand the needs of a step system. This table is in the report, and I do not expect you guys to see or review it right now. This goes over the strengths and the weaknesses. It summarizes the strengths and the weaknesses of both the gravity system and the step system. And we can talk more about some of the different strengths and weaknesses within the systems if anybody has any questions on them. So what challenges do we have with the board? The board needs to make a needs to make a decision next week, or they're going to be discussing it next week. So the decision is going to involve balancing the cost distribution between the district and the private property owners, and taking equity with the property owners in as a factor to be considered. This is where your voice needs to be heard on what you are preferring for a collection system. There's operational complexity. Gravity systems are proven systems. Step systems have more operational complexity. Your district is a fairly new district that is going to have to operate and maintain a brand new collection system. Having a more challenging operational facility brings complexity to the operations staff that are going to need to get hired to operate and maintain the collection system. That needs to be considered by the board. And then again, public acceptance is the #1 key factor. We want the public to be behind the decision that the board is making and that we are moving forward with that design. So we want your input and understanding of where you're comfortable. So what's next? We still need to refine this project. Again, we are only at a 30% level. We still need to do additional survey. We still need to do potholing, geotechnical investigation. We need to still do negotiations with the City of Solvang, County of Santa Barbara, the Regional Water Quality Control Board. These are all entities that we need to continue to have open dialogue conversations about what the needs are, what their needs are for the Los Olivos. I apologize. I also worked on the Los Olivos project. My apologies, because your projects are very similar when I make that mistake. The next step is also the preparing the engineer's report. The engineer's report is going to then determine what the actual cost per property owner is going to be. This is going to take into account your funding mechanism, bonding, if the community gets any grant funding, how much of that can be taken off of the overall capital cost. These are all things that the district needs to move forward with over the next year. And then again, public outreach and education. That is key. We need to make sure that you are staying informed, that you understand the project, and that your voices are being heard, and that the district board is listening to what you guys are wanting from the community and from this project as we move forward. With that, I think we turn it over to questions.
So I've got just a quick couple of slides on this. So this other one. All right. So I should have been a little clearer about this when we started. Carrie just touched on it. We're at the 30% design level, right? We're not anywhere near the final design level. This is 30%. And what are we trying to do, right? Ultimately, we started down this path, and the reason we're here tonight is to help the community and the board select one of those community collection systems so we can move on to 60 and 90% and final design, right? So this is what we're faced with right now. We're trying to make that decision, or the board and public here is trying to make that decision as to which one do we take to 60, 90% final design. We're not going to take those steps and gravity. It's too expensive to do science on multiple systems like that. So that's what we're trying to do. So with that, we're going to open it up to public comment. All right. So there are public comment cards like this in the back for comments on the presentation or the document itself. If you have questions, please write them on a card like this one. Steve, wave in the back. Steve's going to come around, collect them, and we'll make sure that they get asked. After we go through public comment, and while you're writing your questions and people are making their public comments, we'll go through the question and answer period. And then, as was mentioned earlier, we've got these tables set up so you can have more of a true discussion with various folks, because this is not a good time for community discussion on everything that's going on. It might be easier to ask Carrie some detailed questions, or the water board some detailed questions about their recent memo, or Supervisor Hartman a question about what the county's view of this thing is, or what have you. You can have those conversations on the side. Okay. So I have one request to speak, 2 requests to speak. Jeannie, you want to start? Please use the microphone so that everybody can hear you. I'm going to have to step on my fair.
Thank you. So we're all talking about collection systems, but what are legally required? This discussion began in 1974 with the Los Olivos wastewater special problems area. And we've been discussing it ever since. So many studies have been done. 1977 groundwater study, 1980 follow-up sampling, 2003 waste engineering survey, 2010 the wastewater management plan, 2013 the AECOM engineering report, 2016 the Berkson feasibility study, hydroscience studies, the region study that's being conducted by Polo, the Wallace group study now, and all of this groundwater management. But the one thing about all these studies that I haven't found is nobody has tested where the nitrates are coming from. They all start with the assumption that Los Olivos has a problem and that it's affecting everyone's health. Where was that assumption ever proven? Not in any single one of them, and I researched them all.
So Jeannie, can you stick to her report?
And we're talking about the collections.
Yeah.
And so
collection systems, please.
On the collection systems, are they even necessary? Before you decide on the question, in the study right now, there's the North well that has an over of 10 parts per million at 11. But as I understand it, all the other wells are not over the 10 parts per million. So even in the wastewater studies, they say that it's from either agriculture or septic. It has never been shown whether this nitrate in the North well is from agriculture or septic. And it kind of seems, since it's a North well, that it would be from agriculture. If it is, all of this that the Wallace Group study is doing, all of these studies will not solve the problem. So we formed the Community Services District starting in 2008, and I was part of it. We were successful in creating the LOCSD and getting it passed with a vote. We wanted thoughtful discussions based on evidence. We did not create the district to become a vehicle for an oversized project. We never wanted to be at the mercy of Solvang wastewater, which will have to improve its facility, cost even more than we expect, not to mention the development concerns. We are now discussing a project approaching $60 million. Roughly 350 homes and businesses are going to have to pay for that. So my concern is, are we being asked to approve the solution before approving the problem? Are we being asked to spend tens of millions of dollars before identifying the source of the contamination after more than 50 years of studies, reports, committees, consultants, and meetings? I'm still asking the same question. Where's the nitrate coming from? Before this community can fund this, find out if it's even a problem.
Bring it up again next week.
I will.
Henry?
Hi, my name is Anna Marie Gott, and my mom owns some property over here on Alamo Pintada in Santa Barbara Avenue. We don't have a problem over there. So what we are being asked to, with this study, is to fund a problem that one, we don't know is agriculture, or two, is related to downtown. How many people actually own property that is in the downtown? Raise your hand. Okay. How many people do not own property in the downtown? Raise your hand. You are all paying for the downtown's problem or agriculture. Do you want to actually add $100,000 to actually? I am talking about the report. I am talking about
collection systems on.
that's exactly what I'm doing. We are saying how much each of these systems are and who is responsible. The property owners are responsible. These people are responsible for paying for this system, right?
Yes.
So that's what I'm talking about.
So
You guys don't have a problem. Everyone outside the downtown, not a problem with your property, but you will be responsible for paying for this system. Doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me to add another $100,000, to a bill that you have for your home to actually pay over the next 30 years. And we don't even know if that's going to be like the top amount, because there are so many other questions that have not been answered. So you guys really need to think about that and show up to the meeting next week, because you need to be there to tell the board what you want. And it's neither of these two projects. If the downtown has a problem, the downtown needs to fix it. We should not be responsible for paying for their problem. Thank you.
all right, so you have questions? If you've got questions that you want to ask,
You ask people to pass them to the middle.
yeah, can you pass them to the middle and Steve will come by and collect them real quick? Anybody? Questions?
Yeah. Take that.
There are extra cards in the back if you need one, and they've got a lot of empty chairs, so there's probably for people to ask them there. Did you want to? I guess we have one more speaker here. Mike, Steve.
As long as Steve is collecting things, and we've had some comments that are in opposition to moving forward in any way, I just want to comment on that. It's easy for us all to go into the bathroom, do this, flush, it's gone. Magic happened. The bottom line is we are in a special problems area, all of us, residential, commercial. We formed a district with residential, commercial. We are all involved. We all need to make a decision that solves the problem for us all. It's been defined since 1972. And if we don't do something as a community, which is why we formed the district, the State Water Regional Quality Control Board and the County of Santa Barbara will impose a solution on you, which you may not like, which could be much more severe and much more costly and much more time consuming than we are facing with here. We started a district to solve our own problems. And we have alternatives, and we need to discuss those and not pretend that the problem doesn't exist, because it does. Thanks.
All right, so we have a number of questions here. I haven't got through all of them yet, but we have a number of questions here. I think there's several of these that you can try and answer. We'll kind of tag team and people up to these in a second. So as part of your study, did you examine what percentage of the questions as USA is on gravity versus gravity, or do you have any idea? What percentage of systems are gravity versus step?
What in the United States, what percentage? I do not know that answer. Eric, do you?
Step systems are pretty uncommon.
Yeah, step systems are not overly common. The majority of the collection systems in the United States are flow by gravity. Yes. How much power does it take to run the step system pump? So that's a good question, and we did include that in the analysis and we estimated for the residential property, $10 per month would increase your electrical bill. Amps.
They're about 30 horsepower pump. What's the average? That would have to.
I do not believe, but and we can follow up with this and respond back to Guy and provide this. I do not believe that it will require a change in your circuit breaker. That your residential circuit breaker should be able to handle the low power from the pump. Does the $88,200 estimated total cost for the gravity system include the financing cost? No, it does not. So again, I mentioned that the all-in cost for the $88,000 was not, it was not an all-in cost. It is just the capital, the construction costs, the operations and maintenance costs for the system. There are funding, bonding, finance costs and interest that will go into it, and that will be included in your rate study for the project. Should have brought my glasses. No, okay. One of our local Congress.
No. So the question basically is whether we go a step or gravity. Is one of those two systems more vulnerable to adding in communities as you go down the Alamo corridor?
Got it. So going down the Alamo Pintado corridor down to the city of Solvang, it is either system, gravity or pressurized system, you technically can tap into it. A gravity system is going to be far easier to tap into or connect to and allow for growth going down. But again, there's still capacity issues with that sewer main as we size it going down. Did I answer that? Okay. You mentioned Los Losos as being similar to Los Olivos. How so, and which collection system did they choose? So Los Osos was also under regulatory requirement to go. They were 100% septic system, shallow groundwater. They had influence to the bay. They were contaminating the bay. So they were under regional board order, as well as they had a no growth. They were actually limited and no growth was allowed. The systems were all 100% septic system, and they were required to go to a collection system. They went to a gravity collection system. They analyzed both the step system and the gravity collection system as similar to what you're doing. They came to the solution that they would go to a gravity collection system. They do have several lift stations. Again, your wastewater flow is going to convey on the east side, is going to convey all the way down to what streets? I apologize. Grand. But which streets were the lift station or Grand lift station? Grand. Apologize. So we would have a lift station on the east side, would then pump over to the west side, and then from the west side, we would go by lift station down to the city of Solvang.
I think the rest of these are just questions I can answer.
Okay.
If you need to chime in,
Sure.
read up real quick. So there's a few questions in here about things like cost. We're really outside the study, but let's try and answer them real quickly. So one of them is asking about a business improvement district. That's a whole different sort of organization. We're a CSD. So I'm not quite sure what the person's getting at. Maybe they're thinking that if a business improvement district was formed, somehow they could solve it downtown. We're not sure exactly what that was. There's another question here about the use of public right-of-ways. Now, the county has agreed, tentatively, not in writing yet, but they've agreed that we can use public right-of-way for all of our collection conveyance system to Solvang, that we can either go across the bridges or under the creeks where it makes sense. So think that's what this is asking. It might be that they're asking if we could put pieces of a step or a treatment system in the public right of way. We've asked, and the answer was no. That's what. Got a couple more there?
Yeah.
So the water board. Oh, so for those of you who have been paying attention to this, and there's actually some links that are on the website now that I can bring up again. We applied for what's known as the Clean Water State SRF grant. For those who've been attending the meetings, you would know that the state looks at those in kind of two big buckets: those that are ready for construction and those that are planning. And we're kind of in the planning mode still, right? And they give points to things like, are you a disadvantaged community? Los Olivos is not. Are you going to have reuse of water? There's a number of categories they give points to. We're not a construction project. We're in that second group of projects, the planning ones. We're not disadvantaged. We're not a tribe. We're not focused on reuse. So we scored poorly according to their categories as far as getting a grant. That doesn't mean that the state wouldn't, if they had enough money, wouldn't give it to us. They just have a limited amount of funds, and they've got to come up with a way to spread them around, right? So they use some criteria to do that, funding basically shovel-ready projects first. So what's the next steps? Well, we're working on trying to find other grants. We're working with the county to see if there's some other funds that could be used to help us get through this planning step. How does Solvang get paid? Randy Murphy's in the back. He's the city manager. He'll be at one of the tables. He'll tell you presumably the same thing, I hope. As we've talked before, we will have kind of a community connection fee to the city of Solvang. We picked around some numbers. No final numbers have been decided yet, but we know roughly where we think we're going to be. We will then be in an agreement with the city of Solvang that's similar, not identical, but very similar to the one that the community of San Ynez, who the San Ynez CSD has with the community of Solvang, to treat and dispose of wastewater. So Solvang will get paid when we connect because we're going to be using some of their capacity. And then just like any other user of a utility, we'll pay a monthly fee for the use of it, right? And that'll be based on a concept similar to what Terry was talking about with EUs and that sort of thing. City treats it a little bit differently, but it's basically that same concept. And in fact, I think you guys are getting ready to do a new rate study, right? On your wastewater treatment plant. So pay attention to that too, because that could affect us long term. Then there's a comment about which system somebody thinks is better. Here's a really important one, and it's kind of touched on. There's a bunch of these around. If you didn't get one, there's some spare ones around. I'd encourage you to take a minute to read through it and look at it. The question that was asked was, at what point will residents be able to vote yes or no on a project? So the answer is that we're trying to get to a 90% design so we can have some good solid costs and decisions. For instance, what kind of collection system are we going to use will have been made so that the assessment engineer can take those costs, look at all the parcels, look at the conversation the board had late last year about how to split those costs up, and then assign a dollar value to each parcel within the district. So once we've got that dollar value for each parcel, then we'll have a vote. We're currently targeting early 2027. That assumes that we find money to get through the 60 and 90% design. It also assumes that we're ready to go, and I think we could be if we can get the funds. So we're working on that. So there's the short answer to that question is covered in here. We're targeting early 2027 for a community property owner vote. More there? Okay.
There's a question on that last commentary. It's 27. When guessing would construction start? Just to guess.
Yeah, great question. Thank you for the follow-up, because that's perfect, a perfect follow-up. And it actually ties in back to the city of Solvang. So the city of Solvang is in the middle of an upgrade project. They're currently targeting Q2 of 2029 for completion. All right. So in an ideal world, we would be done when they're done, right? They finish and we connect in. But in general, and that little flyer covers it, somewhere in the following 2 to 3 years would be kind of construction. Okay.
assuming gravity system, who would contract to have our pipe to the septic tank severed and new installed to the street? I know the property owner pays, but who contracts for the work? Each individual owner? And the answer is yes. So, well, I'm going to caveat that the district does have a choice to do the property owner installations as well, but I doubt that usually does not get processed. You're going to want to have control of what goes on your property. I can tell you from experience dealing with the Los Olivos project is essentially the district there constructed the sewer main in front of their property, and once that sewer main was active, then the property owner basically had 6 months to then do all the improvements on their property and connect into the sewer collection system. So it's essentially what it worked very well for the county of San Luis Obispo. And it would be something that I would advise the district here to do as well. Why can't a step system be owned by the district and have it put in the public right of way? Have we spoken to the county? If not, why? So one of the big reasons for that is that there are a bunch of other existing utilities in the public right of way. You have your gas main, you have your water system, and they are all over the place. And you have to have separation from these existing utilities. So the likelihood is that there is not adequate public right of way to install step systems in the public right of way. That is one of the main reasons why it would not be feasible. Otherwise, also, it is still within your system. It's part of your property that it needs to be served. Yeah, no projection of future population beyond 1,100. What margin is in the design to accommodate growth? So as I mentioned, specifically on the gravity system, that we designed the system for an 8-inch minimum pipe. One of those reasons is one, from a maintenance perspective, being able to operate and maintain an 8-inch pipe is far easier than it is a 6-inch to get a jetter in there to clean the system. With an 8-inch main, that allows for sufficient development or growth within the community for those needs. So we've calculated the capacity within a 8-inch gravity sewer main has adequate capacity for the future development within the community. So we estimated out, we took the existing community, we looked at all of the vacant properties within the community. We also looked at some of the underdeveloped properties, meaning some of the commercial properties that we know might add capacity or additional development within, and we've estimated those flows. We actually did a peer review of the previous report, and our numbers came in very similarly to the previous report, and we used different methodologies on how we estimated it. So we're pretty confident at the flows that we've estimated that are going to be conveyed within the collection system are fairly conservative, and the 8-inch main has adequate capacity to serve those.
Let me take a couple, and I've got another one for you. All right, so kind of related to that, and also related to this question, somebody said, if you have a property that doesn't have an existing system on it, basically it's a vacant lot, why do I have to participate? Well, presumably, you don't want to give up all of the development rights for your vacant lot. If you want to give up the development rights permanently, I suppose you can get out of the district. But if you ever plan on developing on them, you're going to need to be part of the system. It's basically the conversation we had some time ago when we were talking about allocation of costs, and we said, parcel size. If you've got a bigger parcel, there's more potential in that big parcel than a little bitty parcel, right? So, for instance, a big parcel someday could be split. If you got a really small parcel, you can't really split it, right? So that's why bigger parcels presumably will pay a little more. The other thing that I think is really important, and I think it's touched on in here, is the whole can and will serve process. Not really part of Carrie's presentation or what's been talked about a whole lot, but we have worked with the county, and they have agreed that the district will have what's known as a can and will serve process, which basically means that if, I'll just use the building we're in right now. Somebody came along and said, the Grange, they want to put in a 5-story hotel here. If we don't have the capacity to support that, or it doesn't make sense, we can say no, right? So That's the can and will serve process. The district has to say, yes, we can serve them and we will serve them when whatever the construction is done is proposed. So we've already worked that out with the county. That's a very typical process, particularly I think ID1 goes through that with water. I know the city does this in a couple of different areas. So we do have that process already. I'm going to take this one. It's probably just as easily answered by you because it's very specific. I'll give you the question and you can answer it generically and I'll answer this. So when you were looking at where pipes went, you've got the very detailed drawings. Did you consider where existing stormwater drains are, where existing water lines are, where existing fiber optic is, and all of the other utilities?
The answer is yes, based on record drawings. So we reached out to all of the utility companies and we received record drawings from them. We also use a program or a company called Civil Design. Civil Grid, thank you. We use Civil Grid and they also reach out to all of the private agencies and we received what record drawings that they have available. But I'm telling you right now, record drawings for most of these utility agencies are not the greatest. So again, when I talk about risk, we talk about what we need to do in the next stage. And part of the next stage is going to be potholing and geotechnical investigations. Potholing is where we are going to have a contractor come out. They will do what they call a USA. A USA will require the owners of these utility companies to come out and paint on the street where their utility is located. We will then oversee that compared to what our design looks like. And we will ask a contractor to go out there and pothole and locate the utility so that we can get a better understanding of the horizontal direction of the horizontal alignment of the utility, as well as the depth. So we have a general idea on the horizontal location of a lot of these utilities. For instance, water mains, we see the valve covers on the street. So we have a pretty good idea of where the water mains are located. Gas mains, not as comfortable with those. And the gas main plan sets are more loose. So again, we will have to refine the sewer main design once we get that additional information from the potholing investigation.
And so the specific question that was asked was related to the Grand Luca drainage project that's been going on for some time now. That was considered. We got some drawings from the county and they worked around it all. As we refine the design, we'll get more information.
I can give you what they're building.
Yeah,
It's a concrete drain on Grand Avenue.
they've got, we got.
I can provide that.
We got them. But if you got another copy, we'll take it for sure.
We'll take it. Make sure that we've got the latest. We're happy to take it.
And then this one really has to do with the scope of your project. And I'll just go ahead and answer it. It's basically asking, did we assume or plan for any returned reusable water coming back up on the short answer is no. Right?
Correct.
Okay. Sure, yeah. Go for it.
Okay. One thing I want to clarify, especially at this preliminary stage, especially when we're talking about the gravity system. Again, we looked at every property and we tried to estimate where the septic tanks are located, and we've estimated the design. Now, there may be a few properties, and this will get refined at the 60%, especially for the fact that one of our key things that we want to do in the next phase is to have our surveyors go out to all of the property owners and physically locate your septic tank with our survey equipment. And that's going to help determine what the elevation of your sewer lateral will be, where it's located, and then what the sewer lateral is going to look like. Now, some of your properties may have some significant challenges to even flow by gravity, regardless of your property, because you may have a drainage channel or something that might be obstructing your ability to get from your property, your house, to the road. And so therefore, there may still be, even on a gravity system, there may still be some homes that are going to have what we call grinder pumps or grinder pump lift stations at your property. So I do want to make that clear, which is going to add property costs. We are going to do our very best to limit the number of grinder pumps on any property in the gravity system if that's the choice that the district chooses. Obviously, a step system, it won't matter where your house is located because we're going to be able to pump it anywhere. But for the gravity system, there still may be properties, and I just don't want any property owner to be surprised if there is the potential that you might have to have a gravity or a grinder pump on your property because your property is unique and we cannot get it flowed by gravity there.
All right, before we break into the individual tables, I'm going to take this one more last question. If you have comments that you didn't get a chance to ask or you didn't want to ask, feel free to use one of these cards and you can just leave it up here by the projector and such. What we're going to do now, because I realize that several of you want to have a better conversation with Carrie or maybe with ID1 or the City of Solvang, we've set up, I think I've got Solvang back there, ID1 in the very back. This is the water board, and there's an important in fact, I think I put a couple 30 copies of it over there. We recently received from the water board a memo about kind of the no project option, which is what some people seem to be thinking is a possibility. There's a really good document from the water board about what that might mean to individual property owners. So I'd encourage you to grab one of those off of that table. Some of the county folks, so county EHS, Jason Johnson's here. They are the ones that help enforce the rules related to septic tanks as well as where we're headed. They'll be at this table. Over here, I put the elected official folks. So Ethan and Joan will be over here, and then Wallace Group and I will be right here. So if you've got questions, you want to have a discussion, now's the time to do that. And then last, but certainly not least, before you go, there is a survey about tonight's meeting on our website. I would highly encourage you to take a minute. We'd love the feedback on the process, on what your thoughts are. You can use the QR code. And of course, all of this, including the presentations, will be on the website later tonight if they're not already there. And the video from this will be posted on YouTube. And with that, we're going to stop this part, move to the tables. Thank you.
Thank you.